It is strange how quickly love can transform into a legal battlefield. I never imagined my startup would become the center of a lawsuit from someone I once shared my life with. When my ex demanded ownership of something she never built, I discovered that sometimes following the rules to the letter is the perfect revenge. Malicious compliance became my unexpected ally in this saga that ended with her losing absolutely everything. Before I get into this wild story, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy legal revenge stories. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, I always had big dreams of making it in the tech world. After graduating with my computer science degree, I landed a decent programming job at a mid-sized tech firm, but I knew I was meant for more than just writing code for someone else. Every night after my regular 9 to 5, I would spend hours working on my own software idea, a revolutionary cloud security solution for small and medium businesses that big companies were ignoring. Those early days were brutal. I was working 80 hours a week between my day job and my startup dream. My apartment was littered with empty coffee cups, takeout containers, and notebooks filled with code snippets and flowcharts. Money was always tight. I put every spare dollar into server costs, development tools, and the occasional pizza when coding through the night. My home was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in North Boston that I shared with my girlfriend Allison. We had been together for 3 years, and from the outside things seemed perfect. She had her own career in digital marketing, and I thought we were building our future together. The apartment was nothing fancy. Just enough space for us with a small balcony where I would sometimes sit with my laptop during summer evenings, trying to solve particularly difficult coding problems while watching the sunset. I met Allison at a local hackathon where she was representing her marketing agency. She had this confident way about her that immediately caught my attention. With her outgoing personality and my technical skills, we seemed like the perfect match. She was ambitious and driven in ways that complemented my more methodical approach to life. She had these bright blue eyes that would light up when she talked about her latest marketing campaign, and I found her passion infectious. In the beginning, Allison was supportive of my startup dreams. She would bring me dinner when I was coding late and listen patiently as I rambled about encryption protocols and scalability issues. She even offered marketing suggestions and helped me create a basic website to showcase my idea. Her support meant everything to me during those early uncertain days when my concept was just taking shape. But as months passed and my startup began showing real promise, I noticed subtle changes in her attitude. What started as curious questions about the business evolved into pointed inquiries about equity and ownership. She began referring to it as our company in conversations, despite never writing a line of code or attending the countless technical meetings that filled my weekends. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Allison started showing more interest in the potential valuation of the company than in the technology itself. She became increasingly materialistic, browsing luxury apartments online and talking about the vacation we would take when the company takes off. She began pressuring me to formalize her role in the business, suggesting titles like Co-Chief Executive Officer or Head of Brand Strategy, positions that made little sense for our 3-person operation that consisted of me and 2 programmer friends working for equity. The true turning point came when my startup finally achieved its breakthrough moment. After 18 months of development, we had created a truly innovative security platform that addressed a major gap in the market. Small businesses needed enterprise-level security solutions but could not afford the massive overhead costs of traditional systems. Our software offered the same protection at a fraction of the price, with a user interface that did not require a dedicated IT department to manage. Everything changed when we landed our first major client, a Fortune 500 retail chain that wanted to implement our system across all their regional offices. This was followed by a $750,000 investment from an angel investor who saw the potential in what we had created. Suddenly, all those late nights and ramen dinners seemed worth it. The company had legitimate value, and the future looked incredibly bright. We celebrated our first major investment with a fancy dinner at the waterfront restaurant Allison had always wanted to try. The evening started perfectly. Champagne seafood and a stunning view of Boston Harbor. But halfway through dinner, Allison dropped a bombshell that would forever change our relationship. "So now that things are taking off, we need to discuss my equity stake in the company," she said casually, as if requesting the dessert menu. I was caught completely off guard. "What equity stake? I have been supporting you this whole time, Cody. I deserve at least 30% of the company." The conversation quickly escalated into an uncomfortable debate about her contributions versus her expectations. I tried to explain that occasional marketing advice and emotional support, while appreciated, were not equivalent to founding roles that my actual partners had contributed. "You either make me an equal partner in this company, or we need to reconsider our relationship," she declared, creating a scene in the elegant restaurant. Making one of the hardest decisions of my life, I chose to protect my company and the years of work I had invested. I could not give away a significant portion of equity to someone whose contributions had been minimal at best. The argument that followed was explosive, ending with Allison storming out of the restaurant and our 3-year relationship effectively over. When I returned to our apartment later that night, I found her closet half empty and her key on the kitchen counter with a note that simply read, "You will regret this decision." I tried to be civil about the breakup, sending polite messages about dividing our shared possessions and coordinating times for her to collect the rest of her things. For a few weeks, things remained relatively cordial if cold. Everything changed when news of our upcoming second investment round leaked in a local tech publication. The article mentioned potential valuation numbers that were significantly higher than our first round. Within hours of that article going live, I received an email from Allison that sent chills down my spine. "I have been part of building this company from day one," she wrote. "I am entitled to 50% of everything you have built, and I intend to claim what is rightfully mine." I dismissed it as emotional venting until 3 weeks later, when a courier delivered legal papers to our office. Opening them in front of my small team was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. Allison was suing me, and the company claiming she had a verbal agreement entitling her to half ownership, citing consulting work she had provided, without compensation, and demanding immediate payment and equity transfer. My stomach dropped as I read through the lawsuit. She was asking for 50% of a company she had never officially worked for, plus damages for intentional emotional distress and unjust enrichment. The claims were outrageous, but lawsuits, valid or not, can destroy startups. Investors get nervous, clients become hesitant, and resources get diverted to legal battles instead of product development. I immediately hired an expensive attorney who specialized in startup disputes, draining a significant portion of my personal savings in the process. His initial advice was disheartening. Even though her claims are weak fighting, this could be costly and create bad publicity. Consider settling with a small equity percentage to make it go away quickly. The suggestion made my blood boil. Giving in to what amounted to extortion felt wrong on every level. Despite the attorney warning me about the emotional and financial toll of a legal battle, I decided to fight based on principle and truth. I would not reward someone for trying to take what they did not earn. As we prepared our legal defense, we began the discovery process, and what we uncovered about Allison shocked me to my core. Hidden in old emails and text messages recovered from company devices was evidence that she had been planning this legal strategy for over a year, long before our breakup. We discovered messages she had sent to one of our competitors, offering insider information about our product roadmap and client pipeline. There were searches on her laptop about how to claim ownership in boyfriend business, dating back 18 months. Most disturbingly, we found conversations with friends where she discussed her investment strategy of dating a promising entrepreneur and securing equity through a relationship rather than actual work. The most damning evidence came from our server logs, which showed multiple attempts to access company files after our breakup using old passwords and accounts that should have been disabled. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. This was not just an ex seeking what she felt entitled to. This was a calculated plan that predated much of our relationship. As the legal proceedings continued, Allison escalated her demands. Her aggressive attorney, working on contingency with the promise of a big payday, now claimed she deserved 60% of the company plus punitive damages. They gave interviews to tech blogs painting me as someone who had pushed out my co-founder once the company became valuable. The media attention began affecting business relationships. Potential clients asked uncomfortable questions about the dispute, and our latest funding round stalled as investors waited to see how the situation would resolve. Our legal bills mounted eating into the runway we had secured with our initial investment. Some nights I would lay awake wondering if fighting was worth the cost. The stress began taking a physical toll. I lost 15 pounds, developed insomnia, and started getting tension headaches that would last for days. My team remained supportive, but I could see the worry in their eyes, as the company they had also poured their hearts into faced an existential threat from someone who had contributed nothing to its success. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. While reviewing documents at 3 a.m, unable to sleep, I discovered something I had completely forgotten. Early in our company formation, everyone who had access to our initial business plans and technology concepts, including Allison, had signed standard non-disclosure agreements. I pulled up the document from our cloud storage and felt a surge of hope for the first time in months. The NDA Allison had signed contained not just confidentiality provisions, but also clear intellectual property assignments and ownership acknowledgments. There was specific language stating that signing the document did not constitute any ownership in the company or its innovations. Even more importantly, there were clauses about not interfering with business relationships and not seeking ownership claims outside of formal written agreements approved by all founders. Allison had violated virtually every provision of this legally binding document. Suddenly, I realized we could do more than just defend against her lawsuit. We could counter-sue for these breaches with significant damages specified in the contract for each violation. A plan began forming in my mind as I forwarded the document to our attorney with a simple message: "I think we just found our way out." My legal team was cautiously optimistic when I shared my discovery. We spent the next week building the perfect countersuit, documenting each violation of the NDA with timestamps and evidence. The agreement specified liquidated damages of $10,000 per violation, and we had documented dozens of clear breaches. Additionally, we included claims for business interference attorney fees and injunctive relief to prevent further damages to the company. This was the epitome of malicious compliance. Allison had signed a document years ago, probably without reading it carefully, and now we would hold her to every single word of it. The contract she had casually agreed to would become the instrument of her undoing. Our countersuit was comprehensive, detailing how she had attempted to access company servers after our breakup, shared confidential information with competitors, and violated the specific provisions about ownership claims. We requested maximum damages for each breach totaling over $2 million. I will never forget the look on her face when our process server delivered the countersuit documents to her at her favorite brunch spot where she was dining with friends. According to the server, her face drained of color as she flipped through the pages and realized the gravity of what she was facing. Within hours, her attorney was calling mine, suddenly interested in discussing settlement options. But it was too late for that. The wheels of justice were already in motion, and I was determined to see this through to the end. We had a strong case, and I was tired of being on the defensive. It was time to show that actions have consequences. When we finally had our day in court, the judge was initially skeptical of both parties. He viewed the case as yet another disgruntled romantic relationship, spilling over into business disputes. That changed quickly as evidence was presented. Allison took the stand first, confidently describing her essential role in the company foundation and early growth. She spoke about late-night strategy sessions and claimed to have helped design core features of our product. She portrayed herself as a wronged co-founder who had been pushed out once success was on the horizon. Her testimony began to unravel during cross-examination. My attorney played recorded conversations where she admitted to friends that she had no clue what Cody actually does all day with all that coding stuff. We presented communication logs showing her total absence from any product development meetings or technical discussions. Most damning was the timeline we created showing when key company milestones occurred versus her actual involvement. The two rarely intersected. I could see her attorney becoming increasingly uncomfortable as their case crumbled before their eyes. The confident demeanor he had displayed in preliminary hearings was replaced with nervous paper shuffling and whispered conferences with his client. The defining moment came when Allison was questioned directly about the NDA. She initially claimed she had never signed such a document. When presented with her signature, she changed her story, saying she was pressured into signing without reading it. When the signature date was highlighted, preceding any of our romantic involvement, she claimed not to remember the circumstances of signing. The judge, who had been taking detailed notes throughout, began asking his own questions at this point, none of which seemed favorable to her position. By the time she stepped down from the witness stand, even her own attorney looked defeated. When the judge finally issued his ruling, it was more definitive than I could have hoped for. He dismissed Allison's claims with prejudice, meaning she could not refile them in the future. He found in favor of our countersuit on all counts, awarding the full damages requested for the NDA violations, plus additional penalties for bringing what he called a thoroughly frivolous lawsuit with malicious intent. The total judgment against Allison came to just over $2.3 million. As the verdict was read, she collapsed into her chair face, contorted in disbelief. Her attorney, realizing he would receive nothing from the contingency arrangement, quickly filed a motion to withdraw from the case when it became clear she had withheld information about the NDA from him as well. The aftermath for Allison was swift and severe. To begin paying the judgment, she was forced to sell her luxury condo that she had purchased with help from her parents. Her professional reputation in the tech industry was irreparably damaged. No company wanted to hire someone known for suing their former employer on dubious grounds. When she filed for bankruptcy hoping to discharge the debt, she learned that judgments for intentional actions are not dischargeable in bankruptcy court. The debt would follow her until paid in full. A few months after the verdict, I received a tearful phone call from her. She begged me to stop the collection efforts, claiming it was ruining her life. She had lost her job, her home, and most of her friends who had sided with her had abandoned her after learning the truth. She was moving to Colorado to live with her sister and try to rebuild her life away from the humiliation she faced in Boston. In an ironic twist, our legal battle had actually raised the profile of our company in the tech community. The case was written up in several industry publications as a cautionary tale about proper documentation and business relationships. Founders from other startups reached out to share similar stories and thank me for fighting rather than settling. The victory in court should have felt more satisfying than it did. While I was relieved that the existential threat to my company had been removed, I found myself grappling with unexpected emotions. There was a hollow feeling that came with watching someone I once loved lose everything, even if it was the consequence of her own actions. I spent many evenings sitting alone in my apartment, reflecting on the years I had invested in a relationship with someone who had been planning to exploit me all along. It raised uncomfortable questions about my own judgment and ability to trust. How had I missed the signs? Were there red flags I had ignored because I wanted the relationship to work? These questions led me to start working with a therapist, something I had never considered before. Through those sessions, I began to understand that Allison's deception was not a reflection of my worth or judgment, but rather her own character flaws. I learned to forgive myself for not seeing through her facade earlier, and began the process of establishing healthier boundaries in all my relationships. The legal battle had taken a toll on more than just my emotional health. For almost a year, my focus had been divided between running the company and fighting the lawsuit. Important development milestones had been delayed, and team morale had suffered under the constant cloud of uncertainty. Now it was time to rebuild and refocus. I made a conscious effort to be more transparent with my team about company decisions and ownership structures. We implemented formal agreements for everyone involved with the company, no matter how small their contribution. I also became more cautious about who I allowed into my inner circle, both professionally and personally. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, our company emerged stronger. The publicity from the case, while initially concerning, ultimately raised our profile among potential clients who appreciated our resilience. Investors who had been hesitant during the lawsuit now saw us as a safer bet, having survived a significant legal challenge with our ownership structure intact and validated by the courts. In an unexpected turn of events, several larger technology companies took notice of our innovative approach to cloud security. What began as partnership discussions with one particularly interested corporation evolved into acquisition talks. 18 months after the conclusion of the lawsuit, we accepted an offer that made every member of our founding team financially secure for life. As my professional life flourished, my personal life began to heal as well. I started dating again this time with clearer boundaries and expectations. I eventually met someone who valued authenticity and shared growth over material success, qualities I now recognized as essential for a healthy relationship. Looking back on the entire ordeal, I can see how strict adherence to rules and agreements, malicious compliance in its purest form, provided the justice that might otherwise have been denied. The very documents that form the foundation of business relationships became the shield that protected everything I had built, and the sword that delivered consequences to someone who tried to take what was not earned. There is a certain poetic justice in the fact that Allison lost everything because she tried to claim everything. Her greed became the instrument of her downfall. While I take no joy in her suffering, I recognize the important lesson her actions taught me. Documentation matters, intentions matter, and sometimes the most perfect revenge is simply letting the system work exactly as it was designed. 2. The freedom I found after the lawsuit was not just financial, but emotional. Being vindicated so completely helped me close that chapter of my life and move forward without the burden of resentment or regret. I learned that justice, while sometimes slow and expensive, does eventually find its way to those who stand firmly in the truth. In the end, the most valuable asset I retained was not the company I had built, but the wisdom I gained through losing and then reclaiming it. Sometimes life takes us through painful chapters to teach us lessons we could learn no other way. And occasionally, those difficult passages lead to the most beautiful outcomes we could never have anticipated. So let me ask you, have you ever experienced someone trying to take credit for your hard work? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And if you know someone dealing with a similar situation, share this video. It might give them the courage to stand their ground. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes following the rules to the letter is the sweetest revenge of all.